And we'll start with Jason Thielen.
Jason Thielen, present.
Long Lot, present.
Greg Gordon, present.
And Troy Stout, present. I do believe that Jessica Smewen is on her way to join us as well, so she'll probably be a late entry onto the roll. We are once again holding our public meeting via Skype, or I'm sorry, by YouTube and Zoom. And we apologize for that, but we continue to try to be nimble and plan according to the immediate need with the pandemic. We hope that everyone out there is well and taking good care of themselves and taking the necessary precautions to stay healthy. As a city, we continue to have our city offices closed to the public unless there is an appointment. If you're out there and you have a need to drop any plans off or plan applications, you're welcome to do that through the Dropbox or call ahead to make an appointment. We will be doing some things in the near future to mitigate any potential cross-contamination and help us continue to fight COVID from a city level. Again, thank you for joining us tonight. We've had our roll call. I'd like to ask Jason Thielen to lead us in a prayer.
Our Father in heaven, we're thankful that we could be here tonight to participate in city government. We're thankful for the employees of the cities, those who take care and run it, those who take care of our parks and keep our city clean. We're thankful for all their work. Please help us tonight that we'll have wisdom and understanding the items before us. Again, we're grateful to live in a wonderful, fantastic country with the freedoms and liberties that we have. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Jason. I'd also like to recognize the presence of both Police Chief Brian Gwilliam and Fire Chief Reed Thompson in our meeting tonight, along with our current city attorney, David Church. Appreciate all that he's done for our community. And also Austin Roy, our city planner, and Shane Sorensen, our city manager. At this time, we'd like to have the Pledge of Allegiance, and we have one potential Eagle Scout in our audience who's agreed to help lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, Owen Lynch. Owen, would you please come forward? Yes, please. Right into the microphone if you can. Yes.
Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Owen. And Owen, we'll hear again from you during the public comment segment of our meeting. Before we get there, we'd like to talk about this consent calendar. Is there any question or discussion on the consent calendar items A through G?
And Mayor, I may have missed roll call. Jessica Smewen is here.
I'm sorry, what was that, Jessica?
Did I miss roll call?
Yes, you did, but thank you for checking in.
Okay.
We knew you'd join us a little late. For those of you out there, we were running a little bit late tonight because we had a field trip out to the Bangerter property to take a look at that space for planning purposes. And so we were a little bit late getting back. Okay.
We put this agreement modification for the officer involved critical incident protocol on the consent calendar. It's very well laid out in the memo from Chief Gwilliam. If there's any questions, we could drop that down to an action item down below. Or if you have questions, the chief is right there.
Chief, do you want to give us maybe a brief outline?
I will. I'll be really quick. So this was brought to the council back in January, if you remember. There have been some small modifications to them. Basically, the gathering of storage and evidence is to be standardized. We're going to store it in one facility as opposed to multiple. Should make things easier. Grammar requests, that is changed also, that it will be handled by the venue agency where the incident occurred in the Utah County Attorney's Office. It's also a small fee of $20 a year that will come out of our budget. That's for training purposes for the officers that we do have assigned to this particular task force. And then probably the most important one is any minor modifications like the ones that are in this one can be changed by a majority vote as opposed to coming back to the mayors of every city each time that we have some minor modifications. So those are the changes in the document. The way that the task force is run, nothing of that has changed. We still participate. And I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Any questions for the chief? Okay, is there anyone on the council who feels that this item should be pulled down to an action item, or can we include it in the consent calendar as it's currently presented? Any feeling strongly the other way? Okay, with that, we'll maintain it where it is. Do we have a motion on approval of the consent calendar?
Mayor, I had just one question
Yes.
on the SCADA software. So it looked like this is just for the software, not the optional computer system. Is that right?
No, it's actually, let me.
I thought it was everything.
There was a $4,000 to make it $16,000. It looked like for the computer. Is that the way? That's the way I read it.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So that's the other.
Yeah.
I think it's all inclusive.
Okay. And would you characterize this as a functionality? Or is the upgrade for features, security, or continuity? You know,
A lot of it's with, well, two things. The computer is very old. But since the Windows 7 is not supported any longer, they feel like there's some potential security issues. That version of the software, the SCADA software that we have is, in order to go to Windows 10, you have to upgrade, basically. So yeah. It would be funded split between water and sewer.
And speaking to the Windows 7 issue, I know in the medical field that I'm involved with in dental, those upgrades are being mandated by the government for HIPAA reasons, because the lack of support does open up a lot of security breach potential. So I think it's prudent that we make that adjustment.
thanks.
Anything else, Craig? Okay. Anything, Lon, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Jessica? Jason?
Nope.
Okay. All right, then I'll entertain a motion on the consent calendar.
I'll make a motion. We approve the consent calendar as listed.
We have a second.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the consent calendar by Lon Lott, which has been seconded by Greg Gordon. All in favor?
I
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously. I'm losing my voice. Okay, now we'd like to open it up to public comment. And with that, Owen, I'd like to invite you to come up and help us understand what you're doing for your Eagle project. And you can feel free to sit down at the mic if you'd like. Or is there a mic at the iPad?
It's gonna have to be at the podium, like, so because we have the iPad there,
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right there.
right there.
Yeah, just speak into the iPad, please.
Okay. Can you hear me good?
Yeah.
So for my Eagle Scout project, what I'm planning to do is put a bike repair stand in our local Lambert Park.
Yeah.
For riders throughout the park that can do quick fixes while they're riding, instead of have to go back to their cars or go back home, instead of fixing, so they can fix their bike while they're riding. And the materials what I'm going to do is I'm going to dig up a hole and then fill it with concrete, and then I'm going to fundraise the bike repair stand. And then when that comes, I'll just screw it into the concrete And
Okay.
so for the location that it will be in, is it okay if can I show pictures?
Yes, please bring them up.
to you?
Yeah, sure. We can pass them around. Is there any way I guess we could show them on the camera.
You can hold
Why
it
don't
up.
maybe that's a better way to do it so that everybody who's here electronically can also see it rather than hand it to us.
Well, I'll first just show what it looks like. So the bike repair stand, what it looks like is right here. So you can see on it, there is one up that was newly put in the rodeo grounds, like right in the parking lot.
Mhm.
But it didn't really have a pump on it, and plus it's by the cars, so people really already have their tools with their cars. But this one, where I'm planning to put it, is more in the middle of Lambert Park, so people they don't have to go all the way back to their cars or go back to their house in order to fix their bike.
So when you say the middle of Lambert Park, are you talking about?
So I think I can tell you which area it is. So
Because I was assuming in the parking lot, the new parking lot over by the Stake Center, but you may have something
no,
else in mind.
so where I'm planning to put it is right below the pavilion, up above where the rodeo grounds is. I'll show a picture here. It's across the road of, down from the pavilion, across from the end of rodeo. I'll show you a picture here.
Yep.
So you kind of come into, it's probably hard to see it.
Where that bench is?
So yeah, where that old bench is that kind of broke down. There's also that's where Spring goes, and there was also a bench on the other side. But right where I'm pointing to that bench is where I'm planning on putting it, because it's more in the middle of the park.
Mm-hmm. And that's a good crossroads area right there for a lot of trails.
Yeah, that's what because down below in the newer parking lot, it'd be a good spot, but people, that's where their cars usually are, so they usually have the tools with them.
Yeah.
Plus, while they're riding, then they have to go all the way back down to their cars. But that's more of like a midpoint of where.
That's a really good thought. You've thought that out really well.
Yeah. And that's why I didn't want to. That's why I noticed the one up in the rodeo grounds that they have, but that one also does not have a pump with it.
Mhm.
Most people, if they were to get a flat tire and they couldn't fix it immediately, they didn't have the things with them, they could quickly inflate it and then get back to their cars if they have a new tire or if they can fix it with the stand itself. But yeah, that's pretty much it for where the location is.
So just to be clear, you're talking about the area where Spring, Middle, and River kind of merge right there before you cross over the pavement,
Yeah, I
right?
apologize. I accidentally forgot. I had a Google Maps picture of it, showing the location of it. But yeah, it's where on that picture was.
Yeah, so that's a good high traffic area where a lot of people will intersect.
Yeah, I can kind of show you on Google Maps.
Yeah, I love that idea. In fact, I just stopped and used the repair station at the bottom of Corner Canyon on the south side where they had that parking lot, and that was, they had a very similar stand. It's really useful.
Okay, so where your mouse is kind of hard, where it says Box Elder Drive, to the left, if you go down a little bit right there in that little section of that dirt section right there, if you zoom in, yeah, so in there, right in that section right there, that's where I'm planning to put it. And you can see
Those
in
are
the picture
pointers.
right here that it shows that it's on the left side of that picture, because there's already a bench there in that right where all those trees are.
Mhm.
But
Down on the east side of the main.
so yeah,
Right.
on the east side there's the bench, but on the west side is where I'm wanting to put the bike repair stand.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think that's a good spot. Do you have any objections to that, Shane?
Just out of curiosity, how much are those repair stations?
So the one that I showed you in the picture that I showed you, it's about 1,400, the discount that I'm getting. So I'm planning on fundraising it with local mountain bikers. And since I'm on the mountain bike team, I'm gonna ask some of my ride leaders and some of the head coach, and then some people in my ward fundraising towards bike repair stand.
Good. I like that. It's a really great idea. I like the thought you've put into where it should go too. Okay. Any questions from council for Owen?
How will people know that it's there? Just by biking by? I mean, is there going to be any signage that kind of, or maybe that could be incorporated or put on our maps?
We could definitely incorporate it. It's a very heavily traveled section of Lambert. It's kind of where these four trails all kind of merge and cross each other.
Okay.
But I think a sign. We've got a bench up there on Spring that bears the name of its Eagle Project owner, and I wouldn't have an issue with that on the pump.
Yeah, another thing to say, so on the I chose to put it on the west side because when you come up the road, up and down, going up to Box Elder, you can actually see it better than the bench kind of hidden in the trees on the east side.
Yeah.
It'll actually be pretty visible. And the image that I showed you, I actually have another one, but the one I showed you was silver, but it'll probably be, it'll be black, but it'll be really noticeable because you'll be able to see it. It's in an open space when you come up the road, up and down the road. So.
Okay, great.
Mayor, can I interject?
Is that lawn? You bet.
Yes. One thing that, as you're placing that, I think it'd be important as it is a major intersection area there, that you don't restrict any kind of flow of biking, that if someone's at the stand trying to fix a bike or their partner is by them or something, that they're off of the beaten track area so that they don't restrict anything or any accidents happen as a result of a congestion there.
There's room right there for you to be at least 8 to 10 feet off the trail.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of big space that opens up right there that I can scoot it far enough back that it'll definitely be at least 10 feet away from the trail. So
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, Lon. Any other input from council? I keep looking up the wall because that's where I think everybody is sitting. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Owen. Please work through Shane on that. Do you know how to reach Shane?
Yeah, I have.
Okay, terrific. Thank you. Thanks very much. Great idea. I believe we have another scout online, right?
Correct. Yep.
And let's go ahead and open it up. What is his name?
Mark Steinert.
Okay, Mark, can you hear us?
Let's see, we can see him, but we can't hear him.
Are you muted, Mark? We see you. Can you hear us?
Oh, he's connecting his audio right now.
Okay.
There we go.
There we go. Should start working.
Can you hear me?
Oh, now we got you. Yes. Welcome.
All right. Hello. Good evening. My name is Mark Steiner. I'm a member of Boy Scout Troop 808 located in Alpine. On Saturday, October 24th, myself and a number of my volunteers for my troop, young men's organizations, and my church and neighborhood will be painting curbs on Burgess Park for my Eagle Scout project. The red painted curbs represent the no parking zones along the park. The total amount of curb we'll be painting is roughly equal to 1,600 linear feet, requiring over 16 gallons of paint. I estimate we'll have 12 to 15 people painting for around 4 hours each, which means we'll have in total almost 60 volunteer service hours. I'd like to thank city planner Austin Roy, who helped organize the project, and I'm glad to be able to help the city of Alpine, which I call home, and look forward to seeing the curbs painted.
Thank you. So is it already done, or it has not been done yet, right? What date are you?
No, it hasn't.
Tell me the date again.
October 24th.
Okay. Any temperature issues with that date?
It should be fine unless it's stormy weather. If you could just make sure that the red paint only gets on the concrete that it's supposed to. We
Yeah.
had an issue about a week ago with a similar project that we're dealing with now. It's the first time that's ever happened that I'm aware of, but
Go a little too far.
make sure you have some good supervision.
Yeah. I'll make sure that.
All right, great. Anything else that we need to let Mark know? And is he working with you on the paint?
You have his contact information. correct?
He's been in contact with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, just keep working with Austin. Thank you, Mark. We appreciate your effort there.
All right. Thank you for your time.
Have a good night.
All right, you too.
Okay, is there any other public comment? Do we have anyone online that would like to make a comment?
So
Yeah, there were a few.
we've received a few public comments. Let me check the YouTube first, and nothing on YouTube. Okay, so we have received a few public comments. I'll just pull these up. Let me actually share my screen. Okay, so let's see what we have here. So, okay, so our first public comment, this comes from Scott Kenny, and he says here, let me see if I can get this out of the way. Okay, so a few weeks ago, the Salt Lake Tribune reported 260 Alpiners had tested positive for coronavirus. The paper didn't give a source. Does the city receive such reports from the state or other official agencies? Also, is the newsletter willing to publish the results? Scott Kenny, 260 Fort Creek Drive.
You know, I started writing about COVID statistics a little bit in earlier news lines in the mayor's message, and it became clear that it's such a dynamic situation that it's really hard to give, you know, by the time you go to print with the news line, an accurate reading of what it is today, because between the time that you write it and the time people are actually reading it, things can change dramatically. You know, increases can swing up very high or they can drop really low. So I've tried to avoid creating a situation where information isn't necessarily accurate or timely, so that people, in other words, there are more reliable sources for that information that can be real time and more accurate at the time it's read. I guess, I hope that answers the question.
I think those were his two questions. Okay. Okay, moving on. We've received a public comment here. This is from Susan Smith regarding Peterson Park. So let's see. She says she's concerned about that the city has left the park off the list of trails and open spaces in recent Alpine newsletters. She feels the city does not care about Peterson Park, and therefore many citizens are unaware that it even exists. She also requested to have a trash can and doggy waste can installed in the park. She is also concerned about the lack of care taken for the bridge, which is utilized by many citizens, and they use it for photos and personal enjoyment. She has requested to have it power washed and stained. And so let's see here. And yeah, so these are the comments that she's asked to be read here on record.
Sure. And I actually got a personal note from Susan and meant to visit with you about it, Shane, to see what we could do to get the bags in the garbage can there and some other things.
Yeah, and we can work on that. There's a lot of differences of opinion of how things should be handled there. We had somebody that thought we should paint it white, and somebody thinks we should stain it, and it's rusty. The council really needs to tell us what they want, because, and then the other thing with that is with our small staff, you know, when a request comes in, doesn't mean that it can absolutely be done the next day or maybe not even the next month.
Right.
So there's a lot of things we're trying to do. So we create a list and chip away at it. So we can have that conversation.
Yeah. And And I think I'd like to communicate to Susan that she's being heard. You know, we do understand where she's coming from, and we would like to look at it. And just to reiterate what Shane just said, we have a pretty thin staff, and there's been some comments about giving it a little bit more, maybe a percentage of the attention that we give to Lambert. But it should be pointed out that this year Lambert's had zero attention to, aside from, I shouldn't say that, one of the high school biking teams took some time to help improve parts of Lambert. But it's been a difficult year, and a lot of the stuff we would normally do hasn't gotten done. So-
Mayor, while we're on that topic of dog garbage, I've received also concern from a couple citizens who say they picked up garbage bag loads of dog crap in Lambert Park and will continue. They admitted having walked their dog up there every day, and they're more conscientious since the last newsletter, one of the last newsletters, about cleaning, watching your dog and taking care of things after your dog. They requested also it may be some bags or a garbage can area there in Lambert Park. Now, I don't know if it's if we do something at the parking area now at Moyle Drive, as well as another area maybe by the bike repair place. I don't know where the dog path is that we provide something for them to clean up, but I've had a few more citizens requesting that in Lambert Park as well.
Yeah, the challenge there is it's a 300-acre park, and dogs are running with the bikers and the runners and sometimes the horseback riders. And I think we should have some kind of a resource there to keep it clean. But I think what you're going to find is a lot of times those dogs are on the run and the owners don't see what's going on because they're not on a leash.
Right, but the dog owner should be responsible whether they're leashed or not. Otherwise, you will have a lot of messes by the trails.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. I see Shane taking furious notes.
Yep.
We'll assume he's on it.
Yes, we are.
I was gonna note on the Peterson Park comment. I think it's a good question. You know, what do we do with that bridge, right? It's rustic, it's old, but at some point, does it cave in, right? You hate to go replace it and make it look new or, inconsistent and all that. So I mean, we need to figure out how do we maintain it without destroying the look that people like for photos and other things. And
Yeah. Linseed oil.
And that's what we've done on these trusses, like on Main Street and Canyon Crest Road, and a lot of times it has been an Eagle Scout that has done it. So I think we actually had an Eagle Scout that was going to do the bridge in Peterson Park and never did come through. Yeah.
Do we have a working list of projects that we could suggest to Eagle Scouts who call?
We have had some. It's just a matter of locating. Yeah, that's something we need to do. We have less requests now than we have had,
Right.
For sure in the past, but we need to create that list. Because
Yeah.
we obviously had 2 tonight, so.
Yeah, I mean, if we had some kind of a list somewhere, even in City Hall, that was visible, where people could walk in, once we were able to let people do that, to say potential Eagle projects, and then a scout could walk in and look at the list and say, I want to do that one. And that way we kind of know in advance what's coming in. Okay, what other public comment do we have, Austin?
Okay, yeah, so we have some more public comments here. So now this one is from, let's see here, Mike Carver, 597 West Sycamore Lane. So he sent in a long letter here. I'm going to forward this on to the mayor and city council and do my best to kind of just summarize it here for public comment. But his letter is regarding the youth soccer and youth football parking issues. So he lives in the area. He's noticed that there's been some issues there, including people not parking where they should. Instead of cars parking in the middle school parking lot where the parking is designated, the cars are parking in the streets. Also, he's you're just, it's expected that people should walk a greater distance. Fans, coaches, and families have caused destruction of property in the area as well. So I guess there's been broken sprinkler heads, damage to shrubs, flowering plants. Garbage has been dumped on their lawn. And furthermore, cars have come very close to hitting when leaving the driveway. So, there's just a number of issues there. Speeding is also an issue in the area. There was a hit and run incident that occurred in 2019 along Sycamore Lane due to carelessness. And they've also filed countless complaints with the Lone Peak Police Department. So they're just very concerned about all the traffic, the pollution, the litter, and the dangers that are going on over there.
Yeah, and I can speak to that a little bit. A couple of weeks ago, I was texting Shane because I was driving to a trailhead with my mountain bike in the back, and I could see all the congestion down there. So I decided to drive down and see, just how bad it was. And in this case, I don't know if it was on Sycamore, but it was on really all of those streets where the new subdivision is. And I could hardly drive my truck down there. And there wasn't enough room to meet a vehicle and pass safely because both sides of the road were so heavily loaded, and people don't always get up next to the curb. A lot of those people are out away from the curb. So I decided I would stop and just talk to some people. And I was still in the truck, and the guy was on his way out to his car, obviously leaving a game. And I said, "Hey, could I just ask you a friendly question?" And he said, "Sure." And I said, "So, did you ever receive a notification of any kind from the coach of your child's team encouraging you to park in the parking lot of the middle school as opposed to out here?" And boy, he got belligerent real fast. And he just, he was, I don't know whose business that is. And I said, "Well, I'm just interested to see if you got the notice." And he just kept saying, I don't know, which is obviously denial. And then he started getting kind of really mouthy, and I tried to stay as nice as I could. And he says, "And who are you that needs to know?" And I said, "Well, I'm actually the mayor, and I'm trying to help these people mitigate a bad situation." And his reply was, "Well, they built next to a park, and they deserve to, I live near a park too." And anyway, it was going nowhere. Yeah, but that's the attitude of some of the parents that are out there. And so I do sympathize with people like this gentleman who's writing in, because it is a nightmare over there at certain times. And that particular day, the reason I went down and I stayed there is because right as that conversation was ending, 2 Lehigh police officers, they basically blew their sirens for me to get out of their way. And they were over sprinting out onto the fields. And there were a total of 3 Lehigh cops that showed up. I'm texting Shane asking I was texting Brian Gwilliam, Chief Gwilliam, and asking what Lehigh police officers were doing in Alpine. And I assumed that it was maybe a domestic thing. But apparently a fight broke out between parents and coaches and referees that involved up to 40 people. And so we've got this melee that's taking place over on our junior high school fields, and people parking all over the place. And I'm starting to become very concerned that we are not being aggressive enough at really getting after it. And I don't mean our staff isn't doing a good job. What I mean is maybe some policy decisions that we need to start getting busy on. So to the writer of that message, I hear you, and we're seeing what's going on. I do think it needs to be an action item on an upcoming meeting that we need to really figure out how to tackle this, to the point where maybe we need to talk to the school district about strictly regulating how many games are allowed there in a day.
And we have, and the principal is committed to less games and everything going on there next year. We haven't talked a number or anything, but he said, we've already committed to this year, and it's kind of hard to go in pull that commitment when we've already said, okay, you can have this activity here. I actually was looking on an aerial photo for something today. I can't remember what it was, and came across this. I see all these white lines, and I had not noticed this before, but I believe there's 5 soccer fields striped there.
At least.
And I didn't know that until I saw this.
And there's football fields too,
I thought
in
it was
addition.
4, but 5, huh?
I believe I saw 5 on the aerial.
Goes another one in, which would change things.
Yeah. And the reality is, okay, I know that the school district isn't a profitable enterprise, but they are taking revenue for that, and they're creating an impact on the neighborhood by generating revenue. So to me, there's a little bit of a conflict there. And I think that the residents do have a right to be vocal about the parking situation, because again, I don't see 2 cars passing very safely.
And were you there? Was that a Saturday? Do you recall?
It was.
Yeah, and Saturdays with the football games, it kind of is, it's out of control. It's,
Yeah.
and that's where we have a real problem. I would say someone, and we don't know who, somehow, someone's put up those signs that say park in the parking lot. And I've been kind of amazed that it seems to have worked. Now that's mostly soccer where there isn't as much demand, but it seems like people are actually, 5 days a week, following that. And I think it's helped. But sure enough, on that north part of Long Drive, I don't think you can park 2 cars and have 2 passes. Super tight, and then people open their doors and
to your point, I actually took a cruise through the parking lot, and it was mostly full. I mean, you could find a space if you wanted to, but there's so much in and out going on that I think most people will be able to find a space. But to me, because the parking lot was mostly full and we still had an overflow filling every street, that just points to the fact that we're allowing too much activity at one time.
And Ted Stillman, our code enforcement officer, he does come in on Saturdays for a while, and I've told him to kind of keep track and take some pictures and things of what goes on over there.
And I did. I went over and had a meeting with the principal as well, and we went out and walked along that road and talked about it, and he was very cooperative and amenable. And but he kind of, like everyone, everyone's kind of saying now at this point, all parties are kind of saying, well, the city needs to dictate, including the principal. He says, you guys got the parking rules, and everyone will follow and enforce it. And, so yeah, I'd be happy to take a map and try to propose make some suggestions, because I've been looking at that for a few years.
Great.
Mayor, can I make a comment here?
Yes, Chief.
So I would agree with just about everything that's in that letter, in that public comment. We do have issues there every Saturday, especially during the fall. With the football games are probably the worst when the football games there. Soccer is close behind. If we're going to sit down, and I would love to be able to be a part of the conversation. If we're going to do any striping or any type of signage, we'd love to be a part of that. We do have a lot of time that our staff spends over there on a Saturday, and an inordinate amount of time trying to mitigate parking issues. And well, you were there a couple of weeks ago when parents and referees and coaches were all in a little tussle, but we do spend a lot of time over there, and I would like the opportunity to sit down if we're going to talk about how to mitigate the parking issues and the traffic issues. We'd be happy to be a part of that.
That would be great, Brian. We'd appreciate that.
Yeah.
So if you want to start tackling that with between Shane and Chief William and Austin, that'd be great.
Do you know, Greg, when the soccer and football seasons end?
Yeah, I have a good idea. I think it's coming right up. I had a sense that they were a week or two. Then there's playoffs, but immediately once you have playoffs, the game's cut in half, and so it's you have no more problems.
Jessica, Jason, or Lon, do you have any comments?
I would just say I've been there a couple times in the last couple of weeks with Saturdays. I noticed the police were there. I saw Lone Peak police with their lights on and doing enforcement. So we have them out there. I went there once, and to your point, Mayor, the parking lot was full when I went there, and the streets were full as well. And it might have just been the exact time I was there. But I think the solution is similar to what we did in Smooth Canyon, where I think we asked them to do fewer games, or, we're letting them do fewer games. And I think that's probably our best solution here, because if you can't park in the parking lot, then you don't have a lot of options. You're going to park on the street no matter what.
Yeah, you're not going to leave. Yeah, so I think the discussions, we really need to start right away with the principal, because they'll start putting out the spring soccer schedule here pretty quick.
Yeah, so we'll get with the principal, get with Chief William and Greg, and you want to be involved.
Yeah, I'd like
there
to, please.
And on this.
Terrific. Jessica and Lon, did you have anything else?
Yeah, I think that getting together like you're suggesting there is important, especially if the school is still wanting to fill their fields at capacity or whatever, then they need to provide more parking, period. I mean, it's they got to be part of the solution too. What I heard Greg say is that we either need to place a parking ordinance or whatever. Then fine, let's go ahead and place a parking ordinance, but they've got to be part of that solution also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. We're still in public comment. So any more that you'd like to read, Austin?
Just one more here. This is from Benton Collins, and he sent in a letter as well as a couple of videos about. And so I think this is, let's see, videos of Sycamore Lane. So it's kind of the same area actually. Over the past 3 months, let's see here.
And I think
in the council meetings.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. For the sake of time, go ahead and summarize. And then I think unless there's anything else pressing that somebody would like to say, I think we've really hit this topic hard tonight, but we'd like to hear what this gentleman has to say.
Yeah, and again, I will forward this letter on to the mayor and city council so they can read it in detail and go through that to see what specific comments Mr. Collins might have. So basically, it is that same area. He's concerned about the speeds in the area. This is the area around the middle school, the soccer, frisbee, football. He says there's stuff going on every day of the week, including Sundays, and just lots of parking on the streets. And he feels it's very chaotic. So again, it's a lot of stuff that's already been discussed, but again, I'll forward this on to the mayor and city council so that they can read through this.
So to address his point that nothing's been done so far, as he says in the last line, what I'd like to do is maybe set a target date of, by November 15th to have sat down with the principal and any other authorities needed in that conversation to at least initiate that meeting and express that for the future, in other words, the spring season for soccer and lacrosse, that the games be mitigated. Okay, so you have that commitment from us to have that meeting and start the process by November 15th. Okay, and is that it, Austin?
That is all I have for.
Okay, then we will close the public input and comment portion of our meeting and move on to reports and presentations. And we have our guest here again this evening to talk about our annual audit. Please come up and, is this mic not working? The one at the table?
It should be working. So we just won't have video for him if he
Okay.
wants to sit there.
Wherever you're comfortable.
I'm fine here. Thanks.
Thank you.
I appreciate you letting me come tonight and report on the audit for 2020 or 2020. And there's only one finding in this year's audit, and that's regarding your impact fees. Impact fees are required to be spent within 6 years of being collected. And you had two types, the streets and water impact fees that exceeded that 6-year period. The state allows you to justify holding those over if there are extenuating circumstances and if you have a plan in place to be able to spend those monies within the next year. The reason, as stated in Shane's response, was that COVID came along and threw a wrench into all of your plans and slowed things down. And so I assume that all of these will be spent going forward in the 2020, 2021
Yeah.
fiscal year. And so that being the only finding, I don't really want to dwell on it too much. Are there any questions about it?
Well, first, I apologize for not introducing you, Greg.
Oh, you're just.
Greg Ogden is our auditor that we've contracted with and is providing the report.
Okay. And so moving on to the financial statement, this is the first year that Dave Sanderson has written the financial statement for you. In the past, I've helped to draft it. And this year the rules changed. And so the city has to provide the financial report themselves. And then I do an audit of that financial statement. And so he did a really good job. I want to commend him for the job that he did drafting it this year. And I want to cover just a couple of points. And so if I could have you turn to page 13 in the financial statements, this is the start of the basic financial statements. And it starts with the statement of net position on page 13.
Also mention real quick, I believe Dave Sanderson is on Zoom here tonight. So
Okay.
And so on page 13, we have what in a business would be the balance sheet. In governmental parlance, it's the statement of net position. And it still has assets and liabilities. And then the difference between those is considered your net position. And so if you look down towards the bottom of the page, we have the net position, total net position of $82 million. That's what the city is worth if you paid off all your liabilities and just had assets only. Then you'd have $82 million worth. And those are divided between governmental activities and business type activities. First column being the governmental and the second column being the business type activities. Business type are your water, sewer, electric, those types that generate revenue sufficient to cover the cost to operate those services, offer those services to the citizens. And then governmental activities is just everything else. And so that's the differentiation between those two. And if you look over the page, we have a really odd income statement is what it would be in business accounting. But here it's called the statement of activities. And the way that a business would normally do this is they would show revenues at the top of the page and then subtract expenses from it. For governments, we want to show how much it costs to run each of the departments of the city. And so we start with the expenses in the left column, and then we add back various types of revenues. And so the first column to the right of the expenses is the charges for services. That shows you how much revenue was generated from direct charges related to providing that service to the citizens. And then we add back operating grants and contributions, of which there were none this year, and then capital grants and contributions, which would be your impact fees, your contributions from developers, anything like that. If you have grants, then those would normally be in that column unless they're specifically operating grants. And you normally expect that the governmental activities don't generate enough direct revenues to pay for the cost to provide those services. That's the norm in all governments. On the other hand, you expect that the business type activities will generate enough revenues to cover the costs, cover the expenses. And the way that the governmental activities pay theirs is through the revenues listed on the bottom of page 15. So those are property taxes, vehicle taxes, sales taxes, and all of those numbers generate enough revenue to be able to pay for the cost of providing the general activity, the governmental activity services. Now, if you look at the number 3 up from the bottom on page 15, you can see that you had an increase of net position of $2,321,000. That's in the far right column, 3 up from the bottom. And so From the governmental activities, you had an increase of 1,157,000, and from the business type activities, an increase of 1,164,000. So that's really a good increase for both governmental activities and business type activities for the year. Now, the one big item that happened from a financial standpoint during the year was that you refunded your 2010 water bonds. And so I want to jump to page 38 and just discuss those for a second. And on the bottom of page 38, we show the long-term debt that's outstanding. And it starts with the governmental activities at the top and then goes down to the business type activities. It's a bottom note 9, but bottom of the page. Okay. And so you can see your 2010 water bonds started out the year at $2,875,000 and then were refunded during the year. And so now that's zeroed out and replaced by the 2020 water bonds. And an amount was paid to the bank, set up from the proceeds of the 2020 water bond issuance, sufficient to cover the repayment, the refunding of those 2010 water bonds. And so they're no longer a city liability. And then you issued approximately another $1 million to use for future water projects that was still on hand at June 30th. And so issued that $3,550,000. And if you're interested in seeing how this affected the city, over on page 39, towards the bottom of the page, there's a paragraph that says the advance refunding. Okay, so it's that last paragraph before the schedule. If you look at the very last number, 131,000, that's how much it saved you to refund those bonds. Issuing it at a lower interest rate, it actually created an economic gain of 131,000 for the city. And so it was a really good thing for you to do. Good that you took advantage of the low rates that are available right now. I want to thank everyone that I worked with. I want to thank Shane and Dave and Carolyn, Deanne and Bonnie, everyone that helped with the audit. The mayor also provided responses. And I think you've got a really good staff. I think they do a really good job for you. And it looks like you're in really good financial shape. So if there are any questions, I would entertain those. Happy to answer them.
Any questions?
I just have just one point, Greg, back on page 14 on the business type activities, our water, sewer, PI, and storm drain.
Yes.
So sometimes our expenses may exceed our charges for service. If we have a capital project that we pulled money from our fund balance, or maybe a large water line replacement project. So that could be a reason we're not covering expenses, because we drew from those, basically from saving. So sometimes, am I correct on that, Greg?
Right.
Yeah.
But overall, you are positive. If you look to the far right, once you take the capital grants and contributions into account, you are positive on all of those. You do have enough revenues to offset the costs of providing those services. Not always just from charges for services, but then impact fees and other contributions help you get there. So, any other questions anyone has?
How do we stack up to other cities that you see?
You're doing really well.
Okay.
It's really good.
Okay. That's all I had.
How often do we have to rotate auditors? I think is there some requirement on that, or?
There is no requirement in the state of Utah.
Okay.
Good question. Jessica, do you have anything? Jason? I can't see over there, but Lon?
I'm good. Thank you, Greg. We
Thanks.
appreciate you.
Thanks, Craig.
Okay.
Thanks very much. Is there anything else? Okay, appreciate it.
Thanks, Greg.
Okay. Sorry, let me get back up here. Can't seem to, there we go. Okay, did you want to take any time for the financial report, Shane?
I mean, the audits for the last fiscal year, but just real quick, for some reason, the full-blown financial report did not make it in the packet, so I just emailed that out just a few minutes ago. But I think probably the most interesting thing is the sales tax revenue. This chart is in the packet. We received our first month for this current fiscal year of sales tax, and it was up over 17% from last year. So that's really good. And we finished the year 10.62% over the previous year. So we exceeded our what we projected in the budget, and things have been holding up really well. So we're pretty pleased with that.
Yeah, it appears the stimulus is working.
Shane, I think we mentioned this in the prior meeting. Is the perception that most of this is due to not just the overall economy, but the change in online sales tax benefiting, our city?
I definitely believe that has been a factor here. And I think just our demographic in Alpine, I think people probably spend quite a bit of money online, which has helped us through this. Some other cities haven't been as fortunate as us. But Highlands, very similar to us. They do have more commercial than us, but their percentages are running very close to what ours are. It's a welcome surprise, because going through the budget process, city managers were very scared of revenues throughout the state. So
Yeah, we had that conversation earlier this year that we wanted to hold off making any decisions, and some of those are on our agenda tonight until we could tell what our revenues looked like. And it has been a happy ending, or at least to this point. It's not over yet.
I've been interested to see, even before the pandemic began, some of the cities that have just tons of retail, as it started to slide away and go away, their commercial base, and they're in a crisis mode. And even Draper was feeling some of the pain. But so we don't really have that same dependency, it seems like. So.
Yeah. And there's a lot of online stuff going on. The nice thing about like Amazon paying sales tax, finally charging sales tax consistently, is the state divides that money and gives us our portion based on our population, which works out well for us.
it does.
Okay. Next topic on our agenda is about the city attorney position. And before we go down that road too far, I want to publicly say thank you to David Church for everything he's done for our city and with our city. He's been kind of a constant presence for, what is it? Is it 20, how many years?
96, 97.
97 years?
96 or 97 when I started.
Yeah, so 23, 24 years, which is just has been a great asset to our city. And we very much appreciate him and his demeanor and his insights and all of his patience as we wade through our meetings that are not necessarily always run by Robert's Rule of Order in the neatest fashion. But David, I'd like to thank you, and I know that council feels the same, for all of the things that you've done for us and for being part of our city for so many years. I don't know if anybody else wants to add anything.
Thank you,
to
David.
that before I go on.
Thank you, David.
Okay. And so with that, David announced and has been reminding us pretty consistently that we needed to find his replacement. And that's not an easy task to achieve, but we, David and I, and also Greg have been part of interviewing candidates for the position of city attorney. We started out with 6 candidates who had responded to our RFP. And from that group, we narrowed down to 4 that started through the interview process, then narrowed that to 2, and then a finalist. And so I'm happy to announce that Craig Hall will be our city attorney moving forward. We haven't officially come to terms, but we are in good faith negotiating a final agreement with them now. And we expect to have Craig be part of our next city council meeting. With that, Craig comes with some great background and qualifications, and David may be able to speak to some of those. But he also has a team that he works with, so we will have the services of that full team. And again, Craig will be with us in our next meeting. And by that time, we will have arrived at a final agreement, which will, just for the sake of making sure everybody understands the process, we will start with an hourly rate and then move toward a flat rate retainer within a fairly short period of time so that we can have full use of the attorney without worrying about hours. And so with that, once again, I'll thank David. And David, if there's anything you'd like to say or comments about that, I'd love to hear from you.
I don't have anything to say. I know Craig Hall, he's very experienced, will do a good job. Try to avoid second guessing and criticizing me out of politeness. I appreciate the work over the years. You guys have been a really good client. I've been proud to be the Alpine City Attorney. It's a wonderful city, and we've had a lot of interesting issues, and been good work.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for all your counsel. We appreciate you.
For sure. Thank you, David.
Take it away,
After
Shane.
24 years, I mean, I've worked with the city 20 years full time and 5 years before that through a consultant. Anyway, for 24 of that, I believe David has been here, and we've leaned on him for advice weekly, sometimes daily.
Yeah.
He's just been a great resource, and I've honestly dreaded the day when he decided to slow it down. So
yeah,
but my dad passed away before he could retire and enjoy retirement, and so I'm glad David will be able to go golf or fish or whatever he wants to do. So
yeah,
it's been awesome to have around for sure.
for sure. And I've appreciated the sense of humor and I mean, so Dave's always got something great and funny to say.
I don't think we interviewed for that, but we should.
No, we should have. Yeah.
Come to one of our conferences.
Yeah, I've been to one or two where David has spoken, and it shouldn't go unsaid that David has statewide respect. You know, and nobody in the legal field doesn't know who David Church is, and I've never heard anybody say a negative thing. So it's been an honor to work with David.
Yep. Thanks, David, and we'll miss you. And I think a good way to summarize David's, contribution is he literally wrote the book on city government. I mean, it's the book that everyone gets. And when new city leaders go to be trained, they have all these experts get 30 minutes. Dave Church 2 hours. I think that's something.
Yep. So, David, we'd like to invite you back to a future meeting, if that's okay. We'd like to provide an opportunity for the council to in person say goodbye, if that's okay.
Just let me know when.
Okay.
See if it fits my extensive schedule.
You can bill us for it if you want to. All right. Well, much luck to you in your fishing endeavors. I share your passion, and I would love to be able to say I can go fly fishing whenever I want. That'd be nice. Okay. Well, thanks, David. And we'll look forward to meeting with Craig in our next meeting and get to know him better as well. And I'm sure there'll be some transitional stuff that will occur between David and Craig. So we'll take care of that. Next item on the agenda is item A on our action items. I'm not sure how I ended up where I am on my iPad, but it's not where I'm supposed to be. Oh, I am there. Yeah. Okay, Austin, would you like to introduce item A?
Yeah, so this is a resolution where we're adopting to adopt the new construction standard specifications and details of the city. So this covers things like curb cuts for driveways, location of fire hydrants, requirements for gas and power to be installed, among other things. So this has been on the list of things that we've been needing to, it's been in need of an update for quite some time now. So in addition to that, we're some of the updates that are included here also include asphalt thickness for developments and other construction details. I should note that as part of this update, there is a new update being proposed here for the city's lighting, the street lights. So as part, to kind of back up a little bit to give you a little history on this, the Planning Commission has been having discussions on outdoor lighting. And one of those things was, is there too much light at night? Is it distracting on homes? And one of the things that came up in that discussion was the city street lights. And so here at City Hall, across just south of City Hall at Legacy Park, there is a light post there that actually has one of these fixtures on it. It's called a dark sky compliant light fixture. And so included in these standard specifications and details is a spec for these lights. Actually, let me pull it up on the screen here.
I think the downtown lights look really cool.
So this is what you see on the screen is the old one.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we currently have around town. And then this is the proposed dark sky compliant fixture. So
For residential.
So you can see
Here you go.
here's a currently adopted downtown decorative streetlight fixture. And then here's the proposed dark sky compliant. So it's a little bit different. You lose, just a couple little details like this, whatever flower thing that some of the ornamentation on it. The one that we're switching to is a more readily available. This one is harder to get our hands on. So it would be something that would be easy for us to replace. And the idea is that we'd replace this in the construction standard specifications and details. And then, as a light post eventually needs to be replaced or something, it could eventually be replaced with one of these dark sky compliant fixtures.
So one of the questions that I had was regarding the size of the font on the Alpine, where it says Alpine. The ones that are currently adopted, that's pretty legible from a distance. Are we even going to have the ability to see that it's the Alpine name on the new light? At the height, what are they, 20 feet?
I think they're 18.
18?
I think so.
And how tall is that lettering? Do we know?
I'm not sure how big the lettering.
I'm just wondering if it's not really legible, is it worth the extra money that we spend to put it on?
14 feet.
14 feet. Okay. So that brings it down pretty good. It's a 12-foot ceiling in here, probably, right?
And I guess it should be noted, these are the downtown lights. So if you go to the residential ones, you'll notice that lettering is not.
Right, right.
If they're anything like, I haven't studied these, Jed's been kind of working with this, but if they're like these old ones, it's actually some type of plastic. Oh, it's almost
Insert.
like one of these name tag things.
Oh, okay.
And so
So it's more of
they could
engraved.
try to maximize the height
Yeah.
font.
Yeah, I like the fact that we're going to those lights. I do want the dark sky. I just think it's cool that if we're going to have the Alpine name on there, that it's something that we can see.
will these have any glass fixture in there, like the ones above? It's open through the light, and so it shines down. And there's
Is it just an LED night activated?
They are LED.
on like light sensors.
Yeah, they're on a photo cell. And the LED actually has a dial, so you can dial it. Like if they're on their brightest setting, we feel like it's too bright. So I don't recall the setting, but we've had them dialed back.
Do we have an option with, because some of those LEDs can be real white and very distracting, even if they're dim. They just have this,
It's the
not
co-
very
the
nice to look at.
the Tone of the, yeah.
Yeah. Can we get a
You can do
warmer?
Warmer, you can do warmer.
Yeah,
Well-
the warmer tone is probably, I think.
And it
Wow.
looks like all these would be 3,000 Kelvin versus probably what we've been using is more like 4,000 to 5,000, which is a truer white, but it should be like a real softer kind of an orange.
Warmer.
Is what it looks like these are designed to be. And that would enable the dark sky. It affects, insects less and all of that because it's a softer tone.
Mhm.
Yep. Questions from those of us, our group that are on Zoom. Jason, do you have anything on this topic?
Nope.
Okay. Jessica?
No questions.
Okay, and I will apologize. We can't really see you right now if you're nodding or shaking your head because we're looking at the packet. But Lon, do you have anything to say?
No, I just do remember hearing it explained also on Planning Commission that they have the capacity to be directed more streetwise. Is that correct, Austin?
Yeah, so I don't know if I have the diagram, but there's actually some specs that show what it on the insides of these lights and how the light projects out of them, and maybe it's in here. Let me see.
But I think I really like this idea. I really like this idea, and I have seen some of the specs on that, and it will help in the brightness, even at that, where it goes street side on the majority of the light.
There is a diagram in the packet.
Oh, is there a diagram? Okay.
It looks like
Yeah,
this.
I saw that.
Let's see.
If
Okay,
You're on the right sheet, right there.
there we go. Here it is. Let me share this with everyone online. Okay.
But a question, but we're not proactively replacing lights. We're simply waiting for them to break or burn out.
Yeah.
and then-
Yeah, the idea is just we would replace them on an as-need basis. I mean, yeah, it just to make it more manageable over.
Can I go back to item 4 on asphalt thickness and developments? Just as a point of clarification right there, just scroll up a little bit more. There you go. That last line in the red, work with substandard thickness will be rejected, removed, and replaced. Just for point of clarification, is that something that the city will do and then charge back on the bond, or is it something they'll just require to be done by redone by the contractor?
Normally, it would be done by the contractor. If it comes to a situation where we have to pull their bond, then we would.
Okay.
More than likely, it would be the contractor
Okay.
/ developer. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we're not changing that process. I just, I remember when I built my house, it was, we cracked some concrete and had to replace it. And we did that. And I think the threat was that the bond would be withheld to.
Yeah, and this, so that's an infrastructure bond issue. That's a different bond than the bond that a developer would put up
With the
to
road.
guarantee the infrastructure be built within that development.
Okay.
But
Okay, good.
just on this, we spend a lot of time now prior to paving to make sure that they don't get in this situation. We've had a couple of knockdown dragouts this summer on some projects because we insisted that it be regraded to make sure that we got our thickness. We are proactive on that.
Good. Very good. Who is generally going out to do that? It's not Ted, is it?
Landon.
It's Landon.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other items that the council would like to discuss in this particular item? If not, we'll entertain a motion. Or do we need a motion right now? Do you want to approve all the language? Okay. So do we have a motion to approve the language of the revised ordinance?
I'll make a motion, Mayor. I move that we approve Resolution 2020-16, construction standard specifications and details as outlined.
Okay, we have a motion by Greg Gordon to approve. Do we have a second on that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, seconded by Jason Thielen, I believe. Was that you, Jason?
Yes.
Okay. So we have a motion by Greg, seconded by Jason. Any further discussion or question on the motion? Having heard none, we will proceed with a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is unanimously adopted. Okay, next one on the list. Excuse me. Shane, is this you?
Yeah, this is me. So we recently, we actually just completed or had an audit completed by the Utah retirement system. They said things were very clean. They did have one finding, and they listed it because they do these audits about every 4 years. And finding before with the previous finance director that's no longer with the city was that we were supposed to add this statement into our personnel policy defining who's retired, who is eligible for retirement. That did not make it in. So this resolution adds in a definition for who is eligible for retirement. The one I think that they particularly look for elected and appointed officials. In Alpine, they've never had that retirement option, but we did not have that in writing. And so this just clarifies that. So it'll just kind of be an addendum to our personnel policy. So we did run this by them in this audit process, let them know that it was on the agenda tonight, and they said this would cover what it needs to.
Okay. All right. Is there any point of discussion on this? It's pretty straightforward.
Motion. Mayor.
Okay. Do we have a motion? Anybody prepared to make a motion?
I am, Mayor. I make a motion that we approve resolution R 2020-17.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Jason Thielen, seconded by Lon Lott. Any questions on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we have a unanimous vote. Repair of streets and sidewalks. Shane?
Okay, I think my packet's in the wrong order. Okay, so in our municipal code, there's a section in there that I think needed to be changed. So previously, and I did, by the way, I set a new copy of this. I noticed a couple of things that I think should be cleaned up. So it's in front of you, and for Jessica, Lon, and Jason, I emailed that to you a few minutes ago. Your hard
I
copy
received,
sitting here on
I
the desk.
received it.
But the first thing on this, it states in here that to deviate from our city standards, a person needed to come in and first obtain permission from the city council. We've had one or two issues. I know it generated some phone calls and things for the council members. It seems more of an administrative item to deal with those things. And so the proposal is to change that to city administrator. And then on item B, permit required and supervision. I noticed today when I was just reviewing the packet that it actually says that you would obtain a permit from the city recorder. We've never done that, so I'm supposed to change that to the city engineer. And then it goes into some kind of specification talk. And rather than talking about cement, and that actually should be concrete and quality of work and all that, I think the best thing is just to refer back to our adopted city standards.
Does that leave any degree of ambiguity though when it is interpreted?
I think in my opinion, it's better to not have any kind of specific things here as far as standards. Cement is actually just one component of concrete.
Yeah.
And so that language really needed to be changed, if nothing else, to concrete. And then the character and quality of the cement, consistent parts of the mixture, all those things, all the mix designs, the workmanship, all those things are covered in our city standard specs.
Okay.
And so I think having
this is just a reference
related directed to the same spot.
Yeah.
Best way to handle that.
Okay, good.
And to your question, Mayor, we're required to have a city standards book and actually adopted document. So there isn't a document that you guys have adopted. It's part of what you amended tonight that has our specs in it. So it's not more ambiguous. It's actually more precise to add this reference to the city standards, because that's an actual written document that people can look at.
Okay, and I guess that book can be fluid while this can remain constant, just as a reference to the book. Gotcha.
And the detail's not here anyway. It talks about thickness, but it doesn't say what the thickness is. So all of those details are in those standard specifications and drawings that have been adopted.
Okay, great.
So, and then item D, building materials in the street permit. It seems, again, more of an administrative thing that the council wouldn't want to jam up their schedule potentially with things like this. Maybe somebody has some large trusses and they need to be in the cul-de-sac for a day or something like that. Especially where the council only meets every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It makes some of these things challenging. And so putting me on the hook for that seemed to make sense. So that's essentially the changes.
It all seems like no-brainer stuff. I mean, because you're right, we can get our schedules pretty jammed up with stuff that really, really sometimes have no knowledge of, and we're trying to make decisions, and you've got the knowledge.
I mean, this is from.
Yeah, and let me just say this is part of your municipal code that was adopted pre-1977, I think. And so a lot of it needs to be updated and cleaned up this way. We've just never taken the time to go through. This is back when you didn't have a city administrator and you only had a recorder and a treasurer in the office and then people out out working. So
yeah.
I'd agree. This is, administrative and great to update it from the 60s, city that we had. And if there's a true, exceptional case, right, always hear anything anyway.
Yeah.
As it's.
And we're very aware of that. If there's something we don't feel comfortable with, we definitely would bring it here. So,
yeah. Okay, great.
I'll make a motion.
Anything else on that, Shane?
No.
All right, then I would entertain a motion on this item.
Make a motion to approve ordinance 2020-17 as proposed.
Right, we have a motion by Jason Thielen,
I'll second.
and Lon Lot has seconded the motion. Any further discussion?
I just have a quick question on permitting to put things in the street like mulch or gravel. If someone just has it in the street and didn't get a permit, what's the next steps on that?
They get a visit from Ted.
Okay,
That
Okay.
happens weekly.
well,
a
especially
clean
when it's
street.
black mulch in the middle of this, in a street, not marked. I always think that's such a safety hazard.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ted's been very diligent, I think. He's doing a good job.
Yeah, I mean, you have situations like maybe a large crane to set trusses or a pump to pump concrete. These things do pop up, and sometimes they don't contact us. Sometimes they do.
Okay. Anything else, Jessica?
Nope, that was it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll move to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next up is notification for zone change.
Can I make a motion on this right now, or do we have to read through the whole thing?
Is there anything we need to announce to the group? Okay, Jason?
Make a motion to approve ordinance 2020-18 as proposed.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Lon's quick on the second trigger, so he beat you out, Jessica. Sorry.
I just comment, I'm glad, it's good to improve this from 7 to 10, if anything, be nice to see it at 14 or 21 or something, We have so little land that we're going to be.
Okay, are you suggesting?
Just comment on that, Greg. This is the minimum.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so we can always do more.
This is the minimum required by state law.
And there've been situations where we have noticed something more in advance because we can, because we know it's a sensitive issue and public would want a chance to have input. All right, motion on the table. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously, I think. I didn't hear any nays. Okay. Next topic, I'm trying to get caught up on my iPad here. Okay, Lone Peak Public Safety District, and I think this is going to be another easy one. From my perspective, I'll just kind of give my soapbox. When COVID started and we weren't certain what our revenues would look like, it was hard to give merit increases to both our city employees as well as our law enforcement and fire response and ambulatory. And so with the good news that Shane shared with us earlier in the meeting, we now have liberty to go back and do that. And I believe we're going to do it retroactively, right? So Shane, go ahead and take it, but I strongly support this.
Yeah, when the Lone Peak Public Safety District Board passed the final budget, they just wanted to make sure that revenues from both cities were, put the city in a position to have these merit increases implemented. There was a request that both city councils approve this. I believe Highland City Council approved the same thing last week at their meeting. And we're in favor of moving forward because they've experienced the same thing as us with revenue. So I believe we also have this on the Lone Peak agenda for tomorrow morning. So if you remember our 8 o'clock.
Thank you.
Jason, 8 o'clock tomorrow.
I'll make a motion on this.
Go ahead, Jason.
Make a motion to approve the 2% merit increase for LPPSD employees.
I'll
Retroactive.
second.
Did I hear Jessica second?
Yes.
Okay, so we have a motion by Jason, second by Jessica. Any further discussion?
Just a question. Yeah, I think we had a similar question around overall city staff as well. Maybe revisit that later in the year.
Yeah.
Maybe that's something to.
Is there a reason why that wasn't on the agenda
Well,
this time?
in our policies, it says that we did include it in our budget that was approved. In the policies, it says that the mayor and city administrator can implement the merit increases if it was approved in the budget. And so that's why it's not on here.
Yeah. Didn't require a vote, I guess.
It's the same thing though.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously as well. We're all getting along so well together. All right. CARES Act funds. We've got some projects underway and some things pending.
Yeah, so I'll just give you an update and just start a little bit out of order of what's shown here on the cover sheet. But since our last meeting, the Office of the Inspector General has came out with some additional guidance that I included in here. I hope everybody read all 20 pages or whatever. There are two specific sections that address the public safety wages. Before, it wasn't clear, and the county was not on board with any public safety employee being able to be covered through the CARES Act funds. With this new guidance that came out, the county changed their tune, and they are on board with this. You don't have to show specific documentation that a certain employee had a change in responsibilities due to the COVID issue that we've experienced. So in other words, 100% of public safety wages from March through the end of the year can be covered by the CARES Act funds. So where that comes into play in my mind for us is the county, with our agreement we've entered into with the county, we're supposed to have these projects done by, I think it's November 3rd, or that first week of November. They did say that we could go into the end of the year if we had a project that was being finished up, and they would work with us on that. But we have this fairly restrictive time frame to do these projects. So my recommendation would be that we fund our public safety salary portion of our public safety budget with the CARES Act funds, and then reallocate those funds that were already in our budget for public safety to these other projects. That way we have until June 30th to complete them within our budget year, rather than being on this tight time frame, you know, going into the fall and winter of the year.
Which was like November 1.
Yeah. So it just gives us a lot more flexibility. I still recommend that we do the projects that we've been working on, that we've discussed in past meetings, but it will be very helpful to complete these.
Okay, so can we take, I guess in my mind, I'm thinking we allocate what we think things are going to end up costing that we're already working on. We take that money out and then pay the remainder toward public safety and work with that balance later.
There's two ways we can do it. The counties they've required us to report quarterly our expenses for COVID. So it started with the second quarter because the first quarter we didn't have the COVID issue there. So we turn in a report saying we've spent money or obligated money on these items. So our first one, I want to say it was like of our 738,000. Our second quarter report was due last week. We had some other projects that we had turned in, but we still had like 400 and something thousand that had not been obligated because we hadn't received an invoice, or, you know, we're midstream on projects and those things. So they will allow us to go revise our second and third quarter reports with this new guidance. We can switch to 100% public safety expenditures, or we can leave the expenses that we have in there and then just use the public safety going forward.
Mm-hmm.
The county totally recognizes that this guidance will allow almost every city to spend all the money that was allocated to them. So I think the cleanest, and the county saying this to you from a bookkeeping standpoint and an audit standpoint, is if you can spend it all on your public safety, then take your other money that was budgeted for that, that's probably the cleanest way to go. Instead of having a $50 set of PPE for masks on April 1st, and then another one, and all these little teeny expenditures that you're having to kind of keep track of.
The irony is that they were very clear in the beginning that we could not go that direction, and that would cause basically penalties for the city if they did. It's completely reversed. And so it almost feels wrong to be doing it that way, because they put so much effort into emphasizing in the beginning that you can't do it.
Does this mean we need to do a budget adjustment or open the budget to switch where it was allocated for?
Yeah, we will end up having to do something. The money, the CARES Act funds are actually showing up in our budget already. It's a matter of just moving some things around. I could see just adding another line item somewhere. Call it, actually, we've already done it because we've had to make some payments on some things. But yeah, we would sort that out for sure in a budget adjustment at some point.
The only reason I ask that is because we do want to make sure that we stay still within the confines, even though we confines of what we agreed to on some of these projects, and make sure that we just stay in that, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and we would do that for sure. We have a spreadsheet. We've tracked all of these expenses up to this point. I believe I just did a rough calculation looking at the public safety district budgets. I think the wage portions, it's roughly 36% would be our share. I think it's about 112,000 a month. And so that times 9 months, we could easily take care of our the money was granted to us. And then I agree with Lon that we would stay within the confines of that 738,000 on projects. So,
Okay.
so that's what we'd recommend there. And then since these other projects, if that's the direction the council wants to go, I'm making that assumption, but just give you an update. The City Hall entrance remodel, we've had to approach this a little bit backwards because if you've been over to City Hall lately, we had to tear into some walls and do some demolition to even allow the structural engineer to get in and see what he has to do. It's fairly involved back there. We actually have relocated the breaker panels, 2 of them. So I think I sent you an email. We were out of power here for about 3 days last week, but that's all completed. And about a week to still be here, and things are really happening back there. So,
Okay.
So that's going well. I included a plan in the packet that we kind of worked up for Healy Park, because that was a project that was being considered.
The drawing of the structure.
Let's see.
Quick question here, Shane, as we look at it. It looks like the soccer field net got a little bit shorter, and that's probably all they need. Is that, did they state that, or?
So I contacted David Jossie with North Utah County Soccer, is the one that his group uses this field. I contacted him and got his dimensions and drew this field into those dimensions. And they like to have it that big. I kind of drew it to the max, but it sounded like they could go smaller if they had to. He was very much in support of this, felt like it's a great thing if the city can have some other uses for this park so that it can be used, you know, more year round and by more people. But he was very supportive of it. Yeah, that was drawn to hit the dimensions he gave me. I think it's 110 yards by, I can't remember the width. But that still allows them to be able to move that field around a little bit to save the wear and tear on the grass, and that's what they try to do.
Yeah.
I had two possible suggestions on this layout. One would be moving the playground south of the pickleball and maybe shifting the courts up a little bit. That way the playground is on the kind of the soccer side. Because I think what happens is parents will go watch the game, but the kids go play, and you'd have the court, the fences in between.
That's a good point.
Yeah. And the reason it was put there, and we can switch that up. I understand that reasoning. Sometimes the slides get really hot, and Jed's our certified playground inspector and has to go to these trainings and learns all these things. And anyway, so we tried to push it up between a couple of those more mature trees. But there's no trees to the west of the playground in that location. So we could switch things around and plant some new trees there and eventually have some shade to help that.
I was happy to drive by and see a few cars parked in that parking lot.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people, but some people are starting to use it.
Yeah. This is shown with two 20 by 20 pavilions. We had proposed within that budget that I gave the council a couple meetings ago. I think we could do the playground, 2 pickleball courts, and 1 of these pavilions. And then if we decided to in the future, we could install a second one. Or for about 25 to 30 grand more, we could do 2. Or we could change it and do like a 20 by 40 like we have at Creekside Park.
Yeah, and I'd suggest, if we can, try to plan to do maybe 4 courts total, because I think 2 just doesn't do it. If you look at Burgess, there's 4 and they're full all the time. And I've been over at Art Dye a lot, and they have 6 and they're always full. But I think 4 is kind of just like a minimum.
Yeah, Greg, I agree with you on that. I've had some of the pickleball community talking to me too, as they've heard about this suggestion. One of their concerns here, though, is the wind up there and how much wind there is. We may need to consider wind screens on one side or something. I don't know how that might apply.
My experience is that the wind blows a lot less there than it does over on the west side of town. But
okay, I'm just passing along some of the feedback that they're giving me. But one of the suggestions they did make too, along with this, I know we're talking about this one in the CARES Act stuff, but pickleball in general, there's a group of these pickleball enthusiasts that are willing to get some money together, fundraise, and actually convert. One of their suggestions is convert the tennis courts at Burgess Park to pickleball courts, and obviously just have all the tennis courts in the Creekside area and pickleball in the Burgess area is one of their other suggestions, so that that's on the table too as we talk about some of this stuff.
And I've had when we rebuilt the basketball court at Burgess Park, I'll say I got attacked, but it was nicely attacked. Why are you building basketball when you could be building pickleball? So,
Yeah.
we can, you know, approach that. I know in the past, there's been some resistance from the council to convert tennis courts to pickleball, but if that's what you decide you want.
Yeah, so I think that resistance has always come at the Creekside area. I don't know if it has necessarily been addressed on that other area, but I'm just saying the pickleball community, as Greg is pointing out, two won't be enough. 4 won't probably be enough, but they're coming up with some solutions also. They've even talked to, you know, court people to see how much it would cost to make a conversion, and they're willing to find some money to make a conversion, you know.
Yeah, I thought we had talked at some point about the ability to portably convert tennis into pickleball courts.
We striped a pickleball court on the new basketball court at Burgess.
That's right. Okay, that's what I'm thinking of.
But the lines weren't dark enough for them. They didn't like it.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't want to
be down there. We need to resurface that. So when we do that, we'll make those lines darker.
There are some pickleball gangs you got to be aware of. They have their standards.
Yeah, I don't want to distract from our CARES conversation, but I just needed to throw that out. I can move along with the rest of this discussion.
Yeah, with this, there would be some savings in building 4 as opposed to 2, and then coming back and building 2 more. It's just
Equipment's on site, materials coming in.
There's one up in Suncrest, and people are upset about it because they can never play on it ever. You know?
Yeah.
And that's just kind of how it is. At 4, you have a chance. But I'd suggest, you know, leave the tennis courts. Pickleball is growing so fast, there'll probably be demand in the future. If tennis really falls off and pickleball keeps growing, we could convert then. For now, maybe keep, because there is a tennis community as well. But
And in the future, we'll have some opportunities to add more pickleball courts in the future too. For example, when the other half of Smooth Canyon opens up, that would be an opportunity if that ever happens. Other developments that come along.
Yeah. So I would anticipate, you know, this construction taking place in the spring, but it's very popular right now and limited amount of contractors. So the sooner we can get on a schedule, the better.
Can we get it done in the fall? Will we have anybody available in the fall to work on it?
No, they actually shut down, like, I want to say the end of August, and then just from August on, most of them just do surfaces because they still need good temperatures, and then start back up in the spring.
Yeah.
The one thing I'm not 100% sure on this, and David maybe can give us some direction. Adding these features to this park, do you feel like we need to go our open space ordinance, have a public hearing and all that?
I can't remember what your ordinance says on that.
I know for parking lots we do. I think it talks about
Material change.
yeah, material change. That's the word I was looking for.
Got that crazy ordinance that says it takes 4 out of 5 to vote yes to make changes in some of the open space, and I don't know if it goes. We could look it up quickly. I don't.
Doesn't feel like we would need to, but because
Well,
would we need to for a playground?
well, the trouble is you wrote it thinking of Lambert Park, but it applies to all the parks, and so Lambert Park purists, of course, don't want things put in it without the public hearing, and
Yeah.
so. And then the supermajority, but it was written, if I remember right, like it applies to all open space and not just Lambert Park. Does that make sense, Mayor? You remember?
Yeah. I don't know if I was on the council when it was written. I don't remember exactly when what happened.
See what it's, land included in these parks shall not be material changed, improved, altered, disposed of in any manner or used for any other purpose except after recommendation of the Planning Commission following a public hearing and by a supermajority vote of the City Council. The material change shall include but not be limited to a change to the park's present and essential defining characteristics, creation of, or improvement of roadways or parking lots within the park. So that was, there's a big issue about people wanting to build pavilions and
Yeah,
courts and things in Lambert Park. And so
yeah. That was back in 98. That was written.
it was amended last in 2016.
Oh, okay.
7, 11, 16, 7, 16, 8, 07, and
No.
98 is the amendments.
Yeah, so I can't imagine, I mean, let's do go ahead and notice it and have a public hearing just to make sure we're covering all our bases, but I can't imagine it's going to meet with much resistance.
There'll probably be some on pickleball, believe it or not.
Yeah.
When we discussed having pickleball courts behind the 300 North well, some of the neighbors came out and
Oh,
had articles on noise and bouncing ball,
yeah, I know who's going to show up on this one.
So anyway,
Yeah, you're right.
but I think.
But it's a city park.
that process.
Yeah, I mean, the facts are, it's a city park. There's a highly increased demand for that type of activity. It deserves a seat at the table, I think.
Yeah, and we have 4 over here at Burgess. If we get 4 over there, it could really, make it more local.
Balance it out.
And not make people go so far.
Uh-huh. And we've got a
We hear
parking
about
lot.
it almost every week.
Yeah, we've got a parking lot right there for it. So
Yeah,
we've
and
kind of
that's-
built the infrastructure for it already.
Yeah, we've invested in the parking lot. It was expensive to build, and I think we.
Okay.
So
I know-
it'll make a very nice multi-use park over there, I think.
Yeah. I know what Carla would say. We're wasting time. Let's get going.
If I hadn't you started.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. And then Mountainville Academy, they finally got back to me after the last meeting. They ordered, I think it was 8 touchless water bottle fill stations. The other schools just had one. I wasn't sure why 8, but they'll kind of left me with how much do you want to fund? That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
I had in my mind 2.
I think what happened, as it turns out, that I think Timberline actually has like 9. I guess the district just sort of requested to pay for 1.
Okay.
So I think there are more, maybe 2 is sensible. And just while we're on it, the Westville principal, as long as we're on the topic, she really would like to ask for a cart of Chromebooks for 2nd grade. Or because they're struggling, and even if the city could fund partially things, match or something, because they're sharing laptops, which isn't hygienic or something. But
Yeah.
So this was late, right? This is after the.
That sounds expensive.
Yeah, I think it wouldn't be that cheap.
Yeah. How much, what's the price on the water bottle fillers?
They were like $1,200 or $1,500, so not too bad. The other comment she made was that they're having to buy a lot of PPE. That
Yeah.
the way she put it, but we don't have the money for.
Yeah.
Well, we had discussed about $3,600 is what I remember us talking about,
Yeah, and I
which
think that
would have been 3 of those.
one for each school. Yeah, I believe the ones that Mountainville had ordered were just a little bit more than 12 each. So.
And if I could just chime in, Mayor, I just, last time I voted against that. I mean, and the thought is we can use all this money for our city right now. The city's responsibility isn't to provide Chromebooks to the schools or drinking fountains to the schools. I mean, if we want to do it and we want to be nice, that's great. But the city can find a way to use those funds now. None of them are going to be left over by what we've talked about previously by Shane. So whatever we're doing, we're just giving as a gift to the school district from Alpine residents and have other places to spend it. So that's just my opinion, but I'm just one.
Thanks, Jason.
Yeah, it's my recommendation at a minimum that we do at least what we did for the other schools for Mountainville, since that vote was already made and they got back to us after.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we stick to the more conservative number if we're going to do it. But, I've had some conversations with Mayor Rod Mann of Highland about this, and they're actually they voted to spend money on air purification system in the schools. And Jason, my conversation that I had with him kind of went along the same lines as yours, your comments, which is, the school district has money, and they have budgets to accomplish certain things. I happen to know somebody who's in the industry of building schools, and it's there's some pretty major expenses that go into those schools that could be cut back in some cases, but schools want what they want. I'm not going to give a speech on how we should be spending our money, but I kind of agree with Jason where, if we're going to give something, it should be a modest gift to the school and be perceived as that. And when we have money that we can enhance the I guess, prevent cross-contamination within the city, that's where we should be focusing our effort. But I know Rod Mann and the Highland Council did vote to buy air purifiers for classrooms.
Okay. Restrooms ordered for the cemetery. Some of these other projects are ongoing. Our entrance out here is going to be fairly expensive. Working down to a more detailed number, but it's north of 150,000. But it is really involved. Drop by and take a look. I can show you why.
Yeah, I went in there today.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Do we need a vote?
I think a vote on the record of how you'd like to spend the CARES Act funds would be helpful.
Okay.
And if we want to go back, kind of backtrack, revise our second and third quarter expenditures, the county's just waiting there to help us with that process. Some have already done it.
Okay, so Shane, if I heard you right, you're asking for a motion that would approve spending the remainder of our CARES funding on public safety, and then go back and rebalance that with the projects that we have ongoing, correct?
Yeah, we take our public safety, the wage portion of the public safety budget, and spend it on these other projects to give us more time.
Yes.
The CARES Act funds on public safety.
And that would stretch it out to June.
Yes.
Our accountability. Okay. All right. Is there anyone who would like to make that motion?
I can make that motion, Mayor.
Okay.
I make a motion that we utilize the CARES Act funding to pay for the public safety wages, along with the other, I guess I'm going to pull back for a second. I'm having a hard time saying it the way, Shane, you suggested.
I'll make a motion. If you want to pull back.
What was that, Jason?
I'll make a motion then. We break it out. I'll make a motion that we approve the CARES Fund Acts and give direction to staff to use those funds for the public safety payroll, as well as existing projects in Healy Park and the City Hall entrance remodel.
Very good, Jason. I'll second that.
Okay. So we have a motion by Jason Thielen, seconded by Lon Lott. Is there any further discussion or question on the motion?
I will point out, I did not include the Mountainville Academy request, which could be a motion right after this one.
Okay. The only question I have on that motion, Jason and Lon, is if and for David, do we need to include any language about the rebalancing a reallocation down the road and how that would be handled. Okay, not necessary.
Not necessary.
Okay, good.
Actually, one thing on that, I'd recommend pulling Healy Park out because the pickleball courts and some of that work isn't winter type work. It would be more in the spring,
Okay,
and we can expend those funds between the city hall entrance and public safety. That makes sense, Jason.
Yeah, I approve of pulling that out. Just
Lon,
to-
are you okay with that?
Yes, I think the way Jason worded that, though, sounded better that we're not just simply spending CARES Act fund on the public safety, that we still have approved prior spending. By the time it is finished, we will have spent some on public safety and a majority of it on city projects. So the way Jason said it made more sense to me. But if we need to pull that back out and just modify the budget, then fine, I'll go that way.
It seems to be safer to pull it out. I'd prefer to see it pulled out, but Jason, are you okay with that?
I don't understand. Basically, it's the exact same motion I made, except we just took out Healy Park improvements. So the motion's exactly the same, minus adding Healy Park improvements, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so as I understand it, to summarize Jason's motion, the CARES Act funds would be spent on two things: public safety payroll and the city hall entrance.
Correct.
If we pull out the park.
But did the motion mention City Hall? I don't recall.
Yes,
He did say
it
city
did
hall.
mention it. Yes. Okay, so sounds like Jason is okay pulling that out. Lon, are you okay seconding that motion still?
Yes, I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion, and I'm going to ask Bonnie if you could please, are you clear on what the motion is?
I got it. Did you hear me? I got it.
Can hear you now.
Okay, yeah, I got it.
Okay, would you mind reading it back?
Yes. Jason Thielen moved to approve spending the remaining of the City CARES Act fund to pay for public safety wages along, sorry, my voice is going now too. Along with the existing entrance to City Hall. Is that good?
Yeah, public safety and the project at City Hall.
The only thing I might suggest is pull out the remainder and just say the funds, because, for example, with the restroom, we were planning on that being paid for this. We have a purchase order for the restroom, but there's some other work that goes along with it. So if we don't have that done, it makes kind of a split project.
Mhm.
If that makes sense.
Yep, I approve pulling out the word remainder from that motion.
Okay.
Is it the existing entrance to City Hall? This is
It's a new entrance space. Well, it's an entrance.
Converting this south door to the new entrance. Yeah.
anyway.
Okay. Motion on the table. Any further question about the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay, we know where that money's going for now. Okay, last item, Lambert Park Trail. Appreciate everybody getting together and going up on site earlier. Was that early this week? It was last. Wow.
Mayor?
My world is spinning. Okay, let's hear what we've got, because we came up with, I think, a pretty solid plan up there. Go ahead, Shane.
Yeah, so we met with a couple of city council members, the mayor, member of the trail committee, and some staff last Friday at Lambert Park. So I think I emailed these out to you. These were updated today to show some fencing. So on the screen, here's a map. The red dash trail is a proposed trail that could be built as close to paralleling the city boundary as the terrain allows, with reasonable grades. The black X's would represent some of our buck and pole fencing like we have down around the parking lot. This would be essentially on the common boundary between the forest and the city property.
The green's in the city, right?
Yes, the green is Lambert Park. The water tank there on the left, just for reference.
Yeah. So the one thing I can see, Shane, sorry to interrupt you, where you have the fencing, I'm assuming those are the black X's, right?
Yes.
So we had talked while we were up there about pulling that fence line in so that we had a little sliver of land on the other side where we could make some postings.
And the X's, the scale of the X's, that is the intent of doing that. Pull it
Okay.
just a little ways, a few feet into the city property.
Mhm.
We'll have to kind of blaze a little trail through there for that fence, take out a little bit of brush, maybe relocate some rocks to make that happen. And then there'll be some signs on the east side of that buck and pull fence, some no shooting signs. And then up in that, where we talked about having the kiosk or structure, point that out, Austin.
Yeah.
Right to the left, right in,
Yeah.
I think just to the right of that. I want to say it's like right in there.
We wanted to snug that up pretty tight to the border too.
So it'd be kind of a little kiosk, maybe a bench with a little roof on it or something, some structure. It's a nice view up there, and
With a foundation, right? Concrete foundation, slab.
whatever design, we haven't came up with the design really on that. That's something we need to work on.
Yeah, I just feel like it has a much better chance of qualifying as a structure if we've got a foundation on it.
So hopefully this can come into play for dealing with some of the Forest Service regulations with respect to how close you can shoot to a structure and some of those things. So
Gain an advantage in that way. With the shooting distance, is that part of the strategy here?
yeah.
The fence, or what's the structure that we're offsetting here?
The structure itself is it, but there's also some opinion that the trail itself, if it's a utilized trail, which is why we're pushing it up right against the border, would also set that 150-foot distance. Is that the way you understood it, Shane?
Yeah. So that's what has been discussed as we reviewed our open space ordinance that we just reviewed tonight, a couple of items ago. We felt like this may require a public hearing, and we don't. So it is a 10-day a notice for a public hearing. And there's no meeting on election night. So the next planning commission meeting would actually, other than next week, would be November 17th. That's right, Dave.
Wow, that's putting it off
That's
a lot
correct,
further than we want. David, is it mandatory that public hearing be part of a planning commission, or could it be part of a city council?
Pull up the ordinance, because I don't want to guess.
Yeah, I guess I'm just looking for the first opportunity we would have legally.
Recommendation of the planning commission following a public hearing.
So
So we have two projects. We got to schedule the public hearing, then we got to relook at that thing.
My feeling is that we could go up there and build the fence, and put some signs up, but the structure and the trail probably should go through that process.
Yeah.
for sure the structure.
Yeah, I wondered about the trail too, because I mentioned to you that when the Devi brothers went up and created Upper Rodeo, it just kind of blended in with the rest of our trail system. Do we need approval to do that, or can it be
Well,
done
that's one of the reasons why you guys passed this, is because of
random trails?
unofficial trail makers.
Yeah.
There were rogue trail makers, yeah.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. And that has been a problem in the past. Okay. Well, we got to do what we got to do. But you feel like we can at least start with the fence.
I think so. I don't see a harm in putting the fence up there, but the council can give us direction on how you'd like us to approach that.
So I had this conversation with somebody earlier today or yesterday about the fence needing that. And maybe it was with you. I'm sorry, my brain is a little scrambled. But there was an existing fence up there that the city at some point put up, or the landowner. Couldn't we justify this as just a fence replacement? So we're really not changing the nature of anything. We're just replacing an old fence. Does that work?
On the fence, yes. That's
Okay.
I think what Shane was recommending is.
Okay, yeah.
And between the materials that we have left over from the project we did down by the parking lot and the materials left up in at Three Falls that Will said that we could purchase from them, we have about enough materials to do about 450 feet of fence, which will basically cover that distance that we discussed. You're there on Friday.
Okay.
And that's the distance shown on that map. that
Yeah.
Austin had up.
What about manpower to get that fence built? Because that's not a quick fence to throw up.
Yeah, it's, I know Jed's working on that, and I think it can go up relatively quickly.
Good. Okay. Zoom council, do you guys have any feedback or questions? Everybody on the same page?
No questions.
Okay. Then if we're just going to start with the fence now, I don't think we need a motion to do that, do we? And then we'll schedule the public hearing for our next possible meeting and have a vote after that. So the next planning commission meeting is November, did you say 19th?
I think
17th.
Okay.
That'll give you time to get the kiosks designed though, because otherwise you're gonna get in there and start arguing over look and color and shape, and the planning commission's gonna punt on you for a while.
Yeah, good point. Okay.
That'll be controversial if it's just not defined.
Yeah.
What that's gonna look like.
Okay. Okay, great. Let's move on to staff reports. Bonnie, do you have anything?
Not tonight.
Okay. Chief William?
Nothing more than just a reminder of our PSD board meeting tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock.
Okay, thank you. We'll see you there. Chief Thompson, do you have anything?
I have a couple items. The first one, it was brought to our attention a little over a month and a half ago about what some of the owners near the Mountainville Academy have considered to be kind of a fire risk area in the Dry Creek drainage. We went out and surveyed the area and talked to Shane a little bit about that. We have some debris down in the drainage there that we believe we can mitigate with a prescribed or controlled burn here in the next week or so. We'd like to accomplish that prior to water coming back into the creek channel. And so our intent would be to accomplish that over the weekend. Just wanted to mainly bring that to the attention of the council, knowing that there was probably going to be some calls or questions on why and what we're doing there. We believe if we mitigate it now, it'll just prevent a future issue when it's not controlled, and also would remove some of the debris in the basin should we ever get any water again.
Yeah, just when the smoke cleared, we're going to make some more, huh?
Yeah, we anticipate this just being a small event. I mean, I think the large portion of the smoke will dissipate within a few minutes, and then we'll tend it for the next couple of hours just to make sure we've got it out and gridded before we leave it. But it'll be attended, but more just information on that end of things. And then.
Chief, on that, do you happen to have any of those signs prescribed burn, do not report?
So we have some sandwich boards that we've used in years past, and we'll get a sign put up on it that we'll just modify to adapt to that and put it out in front of the school.
That might up our dispatch calls if we don't.
Yeah. We'll make every effort to be aware of that. And we usually, part of our prescribed burn checklist is to go notify the dispatch center ahead of time so that if they receive calls in the area that they know we're on scene. So that was I guess that was that item. The second item I had is just relevant to COVID and staffing. We have had a couple of individuals we've had off from our staff related to it, but have tested negative. Obviously, when symptoms arise in family members and whatnot, it's just created a little bit of a challenge with us being able to maintain staffing, and that has just been this past week. In addition to that, we're seeing just some burnout occur with our part-time staff and having a hard time getting them to fill availability shifts. And I think some of that's due to their filling overtime spots in their own full-time departments, ones that work full and part-time elsewhere. And then lastly, Shane and I have had a little bit of just some discussion on the fire station and the aging building there, and we've just been working through some preliminary rough information on what we need to do going forward with remodel, and that's just ongoing. So I think that's it for me.
Thank you, Reed. You'll be proud to know that I engaged in a verbal sparring with the Lehigh Fire Department and Smith's grocery store about whose fire department was better. One of our former firefighters was in the group, and we engaged.
Hopefully all in good fun, and I'm glad you defended us. Well, I hope you defended us anyway.
I did defend, and it was in good fun. Yeah.
Good. Thank you.
We stopped short of a food fight. It was in the produce section. I almost picked up an apple.
Gotcha.
By the way, Reed, I've had requests for some swag for our fire and police department. People can wear from out of town. So
Okay, I'll have to see what we can do there.
T-shirts and hats and bandanas.
Seems like we should get some T-shirts or something, huh? All right. Thank you, Reed. Appreciate your input. Let's see. I want to make sure I haven't forgotten anybody before we get to Austin. Actually, I'll finish up with you, David.
I don't have anything.
You don't have nothing? Okay. You don't have to say find my replacement anymore. Okay. Austin.
I don't have anything tonight, actually. So
Okay.
thank you.
Shane?
One item we've had on the table for a while and it's just kind of been on the back burner for other projects is to connect this building and the Pike Works building with fiber and switch from Comcast to Centricom for internet service. After spending 3 days working up there on the network that's down here, I think we really need to do it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it drug along. It was pretty slow. So that's something we'll probably look at. And that will also allow us to have the VoIP phones, which right now our internet speed's not really fast enough to do that. When we have people working from home, having a VoIP phone is very beneficial because you can forward calls from our current system. So it created some challenges for us earlier this spring. So that's something that working on. And
well, and if we run it, say, to the Public Works building, consequentially, it's going to run it closer to some homes, and that kind of opens up some options for some of the residents that are probably dying for high speed.
yeah, and I know some others south of here if we move forward with this, they'll continue it south. So I think, like Greg says, there's going to be some outside benefits here.
Yes, I agree.
Centricom run fiber fairly close up there.
They did. They actually ran a conduit to the city shop several years ago.
Franchise for the school.
Yep, and they ran it at that time. And then when we went to connect, the cost at that time was more than what we felt like we could do, but that cost has since came down. And the combination of some different phones and switching some things around, we can essentially get better service for the same cost. So, yeah.
So how will that affect the residents, like, immediately?
It won't. Whatever. So they'll have to bore from 200 north to this building. They do all directional boring and install a conduit to run the fiber in. But it won't impact the residents. So
Okay.
it should be seamless.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. Greg, you have anything?
Oh, I was just going to check in on green recycling. If there's
Oh,
any
yeah.
updates.
Thank you.
No.
That's kind of a
I've been
big
in
deal.
CARES Act mode. This switch will help us with some time issues that we've had.
Yeah.
But yeah, I still plan to get the leaf program. Do you think by November 1st, have some dumpsters and bags for leaves?
Yeah, there'll be plenty to do by November 1st because the leaves are falling now. I mean, I've noticed there's quite a few on the lawn, and so people are going to be pretty engaged in the next couple of weeks.
Okay, so we'll work on that. That should be pretty easy to do.
Can I ask what you're meaning by that, Shane? What is that program?
We discussed having issuing bags and then having some dumpsters where people could throw bags of leaves in for a period of time. If it's whatever we want to do, if it's 2 weeks or a month or whatever.
Yeah, I think that the leaves are, if that's an easy fix, we do that. Absolutely. But I mean, I'd really like to see us get something going for the bigger stuff. I mean, for example, in my yard, I've got to get rid of 2 fruit trees that have died. And it's going to take me a run to the dump to get rid of those. And it's going to be $20. So I think there are a lot of people in that situation. This is the time of year they start clearing out a bunch of stuff and get rid of it.
Yeah, so we talked about 2 things. The green waste is a little bit more involved to get that kind of program created. But I thought that we could work on that through the winter and then have something hopefully ready for spring.
Okay.
I don't know how feasible that is, to be honest with you, Mayor. Green waste, like you said, that's just one house. I mean, take all the number of bags that one property could have of leaves, multiply that by our city. I'm just a little confused how we could do green waste. Even leaves seems potentially problematic. So have we ever done this before?
It's just the leaves.
Years ago, the city used to have some dumpsters at the city shop once or twice a year. And honestly, it was a bit of a mess because they were there over the weekend. At that time, it was more kind of junk, so you could put anything in them. So we'd come to work on Monday morning and 2 huge dumpsters were full, roll-off dumpsters, and then everything else is piled outside. So, but what we had talked about was potentially the leaf program, and then the green waste would be separate from that. There's different ways they do it. Sometimes they have just a can, like you have a garbage can and a recycle can. You could have a green waste can. And keeping it separate just helps with the tonnage that goes in the landfills because the green waste can be used for other things. So,
Yeah, and that's kind of where I was coming from when I addressed it a few months back. is, we had our recycle can, which seemed to be very nebulous on what could be recycled and what couldn't. And we all know that it was all going to the same dump site that the rest of the trash was. It seems like a green waste dumpster for every household would get a lot more designated use.
Especially for like grass clippings.
Mhm.
If you're cutting large trees down in your yard, I don't see the can really
Right.
in a great way. Maybe the cleanup after or something, but keep pursuing that. I've tried to get information from Ace, but I haven't really gotten what I hoped I would.
Yeah.
So I need to press a little harder.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, Greg. Jessica, do you have anything?
We just need to talk about the Main Street trick-or-treating. The Business Alliance said that as long as there was organizational oversight, that the governor's guidelines said, that would be permitted with an organizational oversight. Some things that Josh pointed out was, the requirements to wear masks, to stay within your family groups, and that they would be willing to make sure those messages were clear. So we just need to decide as a council, do we want to host the Main Street trick-or-treating this year, which would be Friday evening, on October 30th.
Is that what Josh said? Because I thought at one point he'd recommended the Monday evening prior, but I could be wrong on that.
He didn't give me a date. I think it's really what, maybe because they would have a conflict with American Fork. So I can clarify with him. Did he give you that date?
Yeah, at one point he mentioned the Monday previous to Halloween. And so I don't
Okay.
know if has that been our tradition? I didn't keep track.
Okay.
So yeah, that's up in the air. But my sense from his text today was that he felt comfortable that they could manage it in the way that's been recommended. Is that what you felt, Jessica?
Yeah, they definitely are comfortable with that and just want to know which direction to go. And I just looked through some old posts, and it does look like we traditionally have done it on Monday evening.
Okay. My feeling is that we move forward, whatever we can to start reestablishing some degree of normalcy for the kids. And if it can be managed effectively and they're willing to do it, I think we should press forward.
Yeah, and thanks to Jessica for spearheading this. I haven't been really involved in this in the past, and she brought it up the other day and followed through on it. But Jessica, did Josh feel like it could be organized between now and that date?
Yeah, he did. He just said, they'll be happy to discuss. I'm reading his text, further, which direction we want to go. So they don't have a problem with the timing.
I think Josh is listening in. He just sent me a text. Good night, David. We'll see you again soon. So Josh said typically it's the Monday before, as Jessica just confirmed.
Okay. And then does he feel comfortable with that timeline then?
Feel free to respond to the group, Josh, if you want to give some input. We'll wait for his response.
So that's 13 days out.
I guess the only thing that concerns me is the numbers that we've been getting hit with. It appears to be dying back a little bit. In our conference call yesterday, the health director said that we are now about 30% I think he said between 26 and 30% of the cases, whereas we were in the 40s before. So Utah County seems to be settling down a little bit. But it's still, we're still at numbers that we would have found unacceptable a few months ago. But hopefully between now and then it trends downward even more and we can push forward.
The other question I have is getting the word out to the public our news line is out for the month.
Yeah.
So what would be the best way to accomplish that? I mean, we have our social media and website.
Yeah, I guess you could look at it this way. Because of the lack of a broad public announcement, it may bring it to a more controllable size group. So the challenges may be reduced as a result. So I think, yeah, social media, just any way we can to let people know.
So we just need direction of what for sure we want to do. And then, Jessica, are you still willing to help?
Yeah. And what about, kind of the banners that we do as you're coming into the community? We could put a few of those up.
Yeah. That is a positive to only having 3 ways into town.
That's right.
And Josh said they're definitely comfortable with that 13-day timeline as far as notifying the businesses and letting them know they can participate. And then can we put that on our website and our Facebook page?
Yep.
Okay.
I think it's great to have the chamber's help on that. That's really a big help to us. And thanks, Jessica, for spearheading it. Anything else?
Nope, that's it for me. Thanks.
Okay, great. Thank you. Lon?
No, just, I saw Shane taking notes on the things that I had, the garbage can type things at Lambert Park, maybe at the parking lots. And then that pickleball thing that we talked about. That's all.
Great. Thank you. Jason, do you have anything?
Just verification that the public safety board meetings, do they all start at 8 o'clock now? I thought they were earlier, but.
Yeah, we did start out earlier. I liked it earlier, but somehow they've migrated to 8 o'clock as a standard.
It's 8 o'clock tomorrow. I think it'd be a good thing to bring up at the meeting tomorrow.
Yeah.
It has bounced a little bit, 7:30 to 8.
Yeah.
So
It's nice to have it earlier because then we can get on with our days.
Okay,
Yeah, so please bring that up tomorrow, Jason.
all right, I'll see you tomorrow morning.
Thank you. I just had one quick thing. I was biking in Lambert Park. I think it was Monday night, and it was being heavily used by one of our local high school teams. In the past, we had the agreement with high school teams that they would put 10 people max on any given trail. So break them up a little bit so they didn't kind of wipe out access to a single trail. And this particular high school with the initials AF were pretty aggressive about, I mean, they had taken over that end of the park pretty significantly. And I wasn't really concerned about myself, but I did see other people trying to find a way onto that trail, and it would change. They would do one trail and they would do another. And so I think we just need to send that message back out to the mountain bike coaches that, hey, we do have a certain parameter that we're trying to follow with regulations to not overload the park. Make sure our residents have an opportunity to use it as well. They're generally speaking all very polite and very, very good, and they're kids that are enjoying the sport. But we do need to make sure we're saving some use for the residents. That's really all I have. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
I've never heard it denied. Second? I've read Jessica's lips. I'm assuming she seconded it. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, everybody. Meeting
Good night.
adjourned. I'm going to go eat something.
Yeah.
I have not eaten.
Pre-meeting.